All right, so you sent us some really interesting research
Sure.
about AI
Yeah.
and the role copyrighted material plays in its training, and we're going to look at this all through a Norwegian lens, which I really love.
Yeah.
Get ready, everyone, because this deep dive is going to be uh, packed with some fascinating findings as we explore how using copyrighted material impacts the development of large language models, those LLMs designed for Norwegian.
What makes this research especially interesting is that Norway has been incredibly proactive with digitization.
Mm.
Their national library has digitized almost every single book,
Wow.
and 85% of all the newspapers ever published in the country.
That is an incredible resource. It's like having a digital time capsule of Norwegian culture.
Right.
So the big question is, does training AI on this mountain of copyrighted material
Yeah.
actually make it better, especially when it comes to understanding and using Norwegian?
Well, it's not a simple yes or no. Norway also has some pretty strict copyright laws. The Åndsverklaven, which emphasizes that authors need to give permission for their work to be used, and they often require compensation.
So that makes this research even more intriguing. How did the researchers get access to all of this protected content?
They teamed up with some heavy hitters.
Okay.
They worked directly with the National Library of Norway and right shoulder organizations, and they even brought media giants like NRK and TV2 on board.
Talk about a dream team.
Yeah.
So they've got this incredible access, and they're building these massive data sets to train their AI models.
Yeah.
What did these data sets look like?
They created two core data sets, a base data set and an extended data set. So imagine these data sets as the foundation for the AI's learning.
Okay.
The base set included all the publicly available stuff, think Wikipedia, open source code, things like that. But the extended data set, that was the real game changer.
Right.
It took everything from the base and added the copyrighted material from the National Library and their media partners.
Okay. It's like they gave the AI a regular textbook and then added a top secret exclusive library?
Yeah, yeah.
Did they mention how much of the data came from each source?
They did, and it's fascinating. They used a tree map, a visual representation of the data. And you can guess what took the crown. Books were the clear winner, making up the biggest chunk of that extended data set.
Makes sense. Books are packed with knowledge and language nuances. Okay, so we've got these huge data sets, but how do you actually teach an AI with all of this information?
Okay, this is where we get a little technical.
Okay.
Think of building a house.
Okay.
First, you need a blueprint, right?
Sure.
In this case, the blueprint is the Mistral architecture. It's the underlying structure for the AI's brain. And building a house requires resources, lots of them. For this research, the resource was massive computational power, a whopping 270,000 GPU hours. They even had to use supercomputers to handle it all.
Wow, that's like bringing in a whole construction crew of superpowered robots.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't stop there.
They didn't stop there. To make sure the results were super reliable, they trained separate control models. Think of them as the quality control team, making sure everything is built to spec and the AI is learning the right things. From the copyrighted material.
So it's not just about throwing data at the AI, it's about carefully constructing its learning experience.
Right, and the training process wasn't just one big step. They had a very carefully designed plan with three distinct stages.
Okay.
The first stage is pre-training, which is like laying the foundation of the house. They started with two different approaches here. Training the AI from scratch or warm starting it with knowledge from existing models.
Oh.
Think about it like this. One AI is starting from scratch, like someone learning a language for the first time. And the other AI is coming in with some basic knowledge, like they took a few classes already.
I like that. That's a great way to put it. So we've got our foundation laid. What happens next?
Next comes domain fine-tuning, which is like starting to furnish specific rooms in the house. This is where they started testing the impact of different types of copyrighted material. Did training the AI on books make a difference compared to training it on newspapers, for example?
Interesting. So it's about figuring out which materials are best for each room.
Yeah.
What was the last stage of the process?
That would be instruction fine-tuning, which is like adding those personal touches to each room, like artwork or family photos. Here, they trained the AI to actually follow instructions.
Okay.
They wanted to see if that copyrighted material still made a difference, even when they were specifically guiding the AI.
Okay, so I'm picturing this AI house now, fully furnished and ready for guests. But how did they actually test whether the AI was getting better at using Norwegian with all this training?
That's where the real evaluation begins. They put the AI through its paces with tests designed to assess its skills in 9 different areas. But we can get into that later.
All right, I'm definitely ready to see how the AI fared on those tests.
Okay, so let's unpack those test results. The researchers evaluated these AI models across 9 different skills, and I gotta say, some of the findings were pretty surprising.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of schools were they testing? Give me the rundown.
They covered a wide range of abilities, starting with sentiment analysis.
Okay.
Could the AI understand the feeling behind a piece of text? For example, could it tell if a movie review was positive or negative? Not just understand the words, but grasp the underlying tone.
That's a subtle skill for sure.
What else? They also looked at fairness and truthfulness, which is crucial in today's world. Could the AI avoid harmful biases and spot fake news? We don't want AI perpetuating stereotypes or spreading misinformation.
Absolutely not. What about the AI's ability to process and understand information? Did they test that too?
Of course, they evaluated reading comprehension. Could the AI answer questions about a text it just read? And they looked at its world knowledge. Did it know basic facts about, history, geography, science, you name it?
So they were trying to see if the AI had a well-rounded understanding of the world. What other skills did they test?
They delved into common sense reasoning, which is trickier than you might think.
Okay.
Could the AI figure out everyday things that we humans take for granted? Like if you see someone holding an umbrella, you can assume it's probably raining, right? That kind of intuitive thinking.
Yeah, I can see how that would be difficult for AI to master.
Mm.
We humans have years of experience to draw on for that kind of reasoning. But we're talking about AI designed for Norwegian. Did they test anything specific to the language?
They did. They had a specific Norwegian language evaluation,
Okay.
assessing the AI's grasp of grammar and idioms, those quirky expressions that make a language unique. They also looked at summarization. Could the AI condense a long article into a clear and concise summary, like a SparkNotes version? And of course, they tested its translation capabilities between Norwegian and other languages.
Wow, they really covered all the bases. But the burning question is, did using all that copyrighted material actually make a difference in the AI's performance?
That's what we're here to find out. Drum roll, please.
Huh.
The overall result was that using copyrighted material did improve the AI's performance across those 9 skills.
Okay.
But there were some interesting twists along the way.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Tell me more about these twists. What surprised you?
One of the biggest surprises was that the models that were warm-started, the ones that had some pre-existing knowledge they generally outperformed, the models trained from scratch.
That's interesting. It's like they had a head start in the race.
Mm.
But why would that make them less reliant on the copyrighted material? Did the researchers have any thoughts on that?
They did. One theory is that after a certain point, the sheer volume of data becomes more important than its origin. The warm-started models had already been trained on a massive amount of information, so adding more, even high-quality copyrighted content didn't make as significant a difference.
It's like they already had a full toolbox, so adding another screwdriver wasn't going to change the game. Did they have any other explanations?
Another possibility, and this is where things get really intriguing, is that those pre-trained models might have already been exposed to some copyrighted Norwegian material. We don't know exactly what data was used to train those initial models.
So the AI could have been learning from copyrighted material all along, without anyone realizing it. That's fascinating and a bit mysterious, isn't it?
Exactly. It makes you wonder about the hidden ingredients in AI's knowledge recipe.
Right. Okay, so warm-started models did well overall. But what about those specific types of copyrighted material? Did any stand out as particularly helpful, or for that matter, unhelpful?
Absolutely. This is where we saw some really interesting nuances. Nonfiction books and newspapers were the clear MVPs. Adding them to the training data significantly boosted the AI's performance on factual tasks.
That makes sense. If you're trying to teach an AI about facts and objective information, giving it access to well-researched books and news articles seems like a solid strategy.
Right, but here's the twist. Fiction, which we often associate with, creativity and rich language, actually had a negative impact on certain tasks.
Really? That's counterintuitive. Any theories on why that might be?
The researchers speculated that maybe the complexities and nuances of fictional narratives actually distracted the AI from those straightforward, factual tasks.
It's like trying to study for a history test while reading a fantasy novel.
Yeah.
You might get caught up in the world building and lose focus on the dates and names.
Exactly. Or it could be that we need to rethink how we evaluate AI when it comes to creative text. Maybe there are hidden benefits from training on fiction that our current tests aren't designed to capture.
That's a great point. It's like using a ruler to measure the beauty of a painting. You need the right tools for the job. What about the final stage of training, the instruction fine-tuning? Did adding copyrighted material still make a difference at that point?
That's where things got even more interesting. The performance boost from the copyrighted material actually diminished during this final stage.
That's unexpected. Why would that be the case?
It seems like the human-provided instructions were enough to guide the AI effectively. It's like the AI had already learned the basics, and now just needed clear directions on what to do with that knowledge.
That makes sense. The AI was ready to put all that knowledge into practice.
Yeah.
So to sum up, copyrighted material seems to be most valuable in the early stages of AI development,
Yeah.
when it's building that foundational knowledge base.
Precisely. And it seems like different types of material are better suited for different tasks. Nonfiction for factual tasks, but maybe we need to rethink how we use fiction in AI training.
This is all so fascinating, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Even if using copyrighted material makes AI better, there's still the ethical question of whether it's right to do so without permission or compensation for the authors.
You're absolutely right. The researchers acknowledge this ethical dilemma head on.
So what are we left with? What are the key takeaways from all of this? So big picture, after all this, what are the big takeaways? What should our listener be thinking about?
I think the most surprising finding, for me at least, the one that really made me rethink things, was that fiction actually hindered the AI's performance on some of the tasks.
Right.
You know, we tend to think of fiction as this wellspring of creativity and nuanced language. So you'd expect it to be beneficial across the board.
Right. You'd think it'd give it like a more well-rounded education in language.
Yeah, exactly. But this research suggests we might need to reevaluate how we use fiction in AI training. And it raises some really interesting questions about how we measure an AI's grasp of creative text. Do our current benchmarks even capture the full picture?
Right. It's like we're trying to judge a fish's ability to climb a tree.
Exactly.
We need to make sure we're using the right tools to assess these really complex skills. What else stood out to you?
Well, those warm-started models, the ones that had pre-existing knowledge, they really challenged my assumptions. The fact that they weren't as reliant on the copyrighted material suggests that maybe quantity is king, at least in the early stages of AI development.
So it's like giving it a huge buffet of information to feast on it first,
Yeah,
and then we can start refining its palate with more specialized ingredients later on.
I like that. That's a great analogy. And it leads to some interesting questions for the future of AI training. You know, what's the ideal balance between quantity and quality of data? Do we need to rethink our approach to data curation?
I'm also struck by the finding that copyrighted material seemed most impactful during those early training phases.
Yeah, it's like the AI was using those copyrighted books and newspapers to build like a really solid foundation of knowledge. But once it had that foundation, it could take more direct instructions from humans.
So it's like the copyrighted material helped the AI learn the rules of the game, and then the human instructions told how to play strategically.
Precisely. It highlights the dynamic interplay between data and human guidance in AI development.
And speaking of guidance, this research really shines a light on the complex ethical questions surrounding AI and copyright. We can't just ignore the fact that using copyrighted material to train AI raises concerns about authors' rights and fair compensation.
You've hit the nail on the head. Just because we can use something to improve AI doesn't mean we should without considering the ethical implications.
We've seen that copyrighted material can make AI models more effective. But how do we balance those potential benefits with the rights of the authors who created that material?
That's the million-kroner question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one that we as a society need to address head on. What kind of framework can we create that ensures both continued progress in AI development and fair treatment for creators?
Right. We need solutions that work for everyone. It's a complex issue with legal, ethical, and economic dimensions. This research Doesn't give us all the answers, but it definitely starts a crucial conversation.
Absolutely. It's a call to action for policymakers, researchers, and all of us to think critically and creatively about how we shape the future of AI in a way that respects the rights of authors and fosters innovation.
I think that's a great note to end on. This deep dive has been packed with fascinating insights
Yeah.
about AI, copyright, and the future of information. It's clear that we're just at the beginning of this journey,
Yeah.
and there's still so much to explore and understand.
Oh, definitely. And who knows what surprising discoveries await us as we continue to delve deeper into this rapidly evolving field.
Well, we're ready to keep diving. Keep sending us those research papers, articles,
Yeah.
and all those thought-provoking sources. We can't wait to explore them with you and uncover even more insights together. Until next time.